Well, today's episode is a little different. This is unlike any style or format or structure that I've followed on the podcast before, but it feels important. Today is my son's 10th birthday. And of course, it marks 10 years of life for him, but it also marks my first decade as a mom. And that feels worthy of having its own moment. And I thought it could feel really helpful to hear from someone who is either right alongside you where you're at in your journey or who might be a few steps ahead of you. And this is also an episode that I haven't really planned out. I thought sometimes it's nice to just hear someone else's thoughts and experiences. So, if you don't mind, that's the approach we're going to take today. And I hope that you will join me in wishing Theo a very happy 10th birthday. I'm Erin Christopoulos, a mother of two and teacher-turned-mom strategist who puts the pieces of mom life together so you don't have to. I get that you're short on time and don't have the capacity to figure out everything on your own, which is why I'm here to help you get clear on where to put your focus while protecting your time and energy so you can actually enjoy these years with your little ones. I'm ditching the overwhelming and unrealistic one-size-fits-all tactics and replacing them with an approach that's practical and personal, because I believe your family is one of a kind with its own qualities and values that deserve an adaptable approach, offering support and encouragement where you need it most. From honest conversations and mindset shifts to practical tips and sustainable strategies, consider this your customizable guide to mom life. With the tools and resources you need at your fingertips, you'll finally have the confidence and clarity you need to bring more intention and ease to everyday life so that you and your family thrive. This is the Mom Life Handbook. Now, as we dive into today's episode, I want to hold space for the fact that many of you are raising littles right now. I saw an interesting stat that millennial moms, the majority of us have kids who are under the age of 6, and same goes for Gen Z as well. So I get that I'm a bit of an outlier in this case. So if you're a millennial mom, I hope that this episode is an opportunity for you to get a little bit of a preview of what mom life is like 4, 5, 6 years from now. And if you are maybe Gen X and finding yourself with tweens right alongside me, I hope that this conversation feels relatable and maybe helps normalize some of what you've experienced as well. Some of it's been great, some of it's been really hard. So I hope that this is a conversation that we can all connect over, even if you don't find yourself in the exact same season of mom life as me, or if you do, you might experience it a little differently than me. Either way, I would love to hear from you if anything in this conversation comes up where you're like, oh my gosh, that really strikes a chord, or I can relate to that, or really, I see it differently. This is how I see it. I want to hear from you. Whether you leave it as your thoughts in a review for the show, or if you want to send me a private message on Instagram as a DM, you'll find me at Mom Life Handbook. I'd love to hear from you. I genuinely mean that. So please reach out with your thoughts as we go through this conversation, because I really do love the community that we're creating through Mom Life Handbook. And I get that a lot of it is asynchronous and it's a small community, right? For many of us, it's the connection between you and me. But having those few people that you can connect with can make all the difference in our busy lives as moms, which can be a little lonely. So I hope that this show is something that makes that difference for you, even if we aren't in real time or live. I feel like those back and forth connections at times when it works for us is just kind of how modern mom life and community works, right? And as an introvert myself, I'm okay with that. All right, so let's dive into a few thoughts I had on my decade as a mom so far. So my first thought is that if it's hard, it doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. So much about American society and culture tells us that when things are easy for us, we must be really good at it, right? And that's just not the case with life as a mom. In fact, I would argue that if it's hard, it actually means you're doing a whole lot of good. And the reason being is that if you feel like it's hard, to me, that reflects that you care and you care deeply. And that shouldn't be discredited. It's hard because you're recognizing the aspects that aren't working, the aspects that could be better. And you're showing a desire to make that change your reality, whether that's a change for you and your circumstances as a mom, but especially as we're raising our kids and we're navigating the dynamic of wanting to be supportive and nurturing and honoring their feelings while also having to teach them and having to hold boundaries. It's a tricky dynamic. And Theo is my carbon copy when it comes especially to our interests, our personalities, and especially in the ways that we communicate and the things that make us tick. And I often think about how, like in a partnership, like opposites attract, right? And there's a reason for that. Like you're kind of like a yin and yang. And when you have a child who's so much like you, it can be really hard to parent them. And it's taken me a long time to really let it sink in that just because it can be hard, because we can sometimes really butt heads or we really go through periods of time where our relationship could be better or I want it to be better. And he does too. That doesn't mean that we're not doing it right. It just means that we're both learning, we're both growing, and we're both becoming better people. And we each have to kind of navigate that on our own and together simultaneously. So, whether it's that aspect of parenting that's hard or if it's just life is busy in this day and age. And that's hard. It's overwhelming because we're expected to do all the things, to be everyone to everybody. And it's exhausting. It's hard to constantly be on. And again, I think that this ties back to the idea of if it feels unmanageable, if it feels like it's burning you out, and you are feeling like it's a reflection that you're doing something wrong, it's the reflection that something needs to change. And you might not have keyed in yet what that is, but that awareness alone is an indicator of your inevitable success. You are not doing something wrong. It reflects that you're having a hard time. And having a hard time has absolutely nothing to do with morals. It has nothing to do with your quality of character or your quality of who you are as a mom. So don't let that define you. I really hope that you can learn that so much earlier on than I did, because it removes so much self-criticism, frustration, and disappointment in yourself that when you can remove those feelings, you can really fast track your progress towards solutions that you can experiment with and implement to try to change the factors that are really causing everything to feel so hard. You're going to be in a mindset of problem solving and finding a solution. And that's ultimately what's going to help things feel easy. So remember, if it's hard, it doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. And then on a related note with that, thinking through how much Theo and I are alike. And I think this goes for any child. I mean, I've got Stella, who's just Jason's mini me. And there's so much she teaches me as a parent as well that transfers into what it teaches me about myself. And so that's my second takeaway here, is that our kids teach us much more about ourselves than anyone else. And I think that that is such a gift. I spent 27 years walking on this planet before someone came into my life who really held a mirror up for me so I could get a really clear picture on what I love about who I am in the areas where I still got a lot to learn. And I think that that is one of the best things that any one of us could get in our time here on earth. It's hard to face, especially our flaws. It's hard to know what we need to do in order to become the person we want to be. It takes a lot of honesty with ourselves. I mean, we really have to face the facts on what we like about ourselves and what we know has got to change or what we want to change about us. And let's be real, that work on ourselves is the hardest work we will ever do. But the fact that I have 2 kids who have helped me to learn so much about where I still have room to grow means that I get to make the absolute most of the years that I have left, which from my lips to God's ears are going to far outnumber the years I spent without my children. So what a gift to have them teach me so much about what I love about myself and what I still have to learn. I think that this can really underscore for us, especially where we need to do the work when it comes to our own emotional intelligence. Our kids inevitably push our buttons. Whether they mean to or not is irrelevant. They push them. And what I've learned, especially in the last few years, is that when my kids are pushing my buttons, when I'm upset by the way my child talks to me or acts or responds, it reflects back to me what my body is unwilling to tolerate, what it hasn't yet learned to tolerate. So often when we feel triggered or upset by certain circumstances, it's because our nervous system hasn't fully integrated how to tolerate the emotions that brings up for us. For me, a big one for years that was so hard for me to understand, but a light bulb went off. I was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense now. It's time. The idea that my kids take forever to get out the door some mornings, especially when I was working and I had to be at school by like 8 a.m. I had to commute half an hour, drop one kid off at preschool, drop the other one off at my in-laws' house, and then get to work all before 8 a.m. That meant I had to leave my house by 7, right? Kids awake, dressed, fed, I'm ready for work, I've packed my lunch, all the things. And if the kids aren't cooperating, if the kids aren't falling in line, we're late, right? And I can't change that circumstance. And for years, I let this upset me deeply. But when I finally started to realize that the problem wasn't so much the system, it wasn't my kids, the problem was that I couldn't tolerate feeling out of control when it came to the pressure of time. So I had to do the work to figure out, well, what can I do to tolerate this frustration better? Is it giving myself reminders that it's okay if we're a few minutes late, the world's not going to end? Or is it remembering it matters more to me that I don't snap at my kids than it does to be on time? So I'm going to take a moment to step away, take some deep breaths and calm down rather than letting this situation spiral out of control. And also, if I know that my trigger is around time, what can I do to free up some time so that we aren't under its pressure anymore, right? Maybe it means I'm getting up 15 minutes earlier. That's worth it to save the daily stress in that situation, knowing that that was hard for me. And once I really started to learn that about myself, internalize it about myself, I have become so much more relaxed around the pressures of time And it feels so good to have made that progress. So our kids really reflect back to us what we haven't yet learned to tolerate or navigate in an effective, emotionally intelligent way that is going to set us and our families up for success, right? So if you notice that your kids are really frustrating you in a certain aspect of your everyday lives or in your interactions together, I want you to take some time to really think about, well, what is it saying to me about my tolerance? Not that we have to tolerate misbehavior or poor behavior, but a lot of the times when our kids are frustrating us, it often is less about the behavior and more about how we're reacting to it, right? And so maybe the right word in this case isn't tolerate, maybe it's respond. How do I respond to these circumstances in a more effective way? But it really is that our nervous systems are not tolerating it, and that's what causes things to escalate. So that's the distinction there. A great one for me lately is like, I am just in sensory overload these days. I don't know why, but I am especially sensitive to just all the noise in my house right now. And I mean, my kids are older. It's not like we've got a lot of noisy toys or anything like that, but they're just loud sometimes and having a great time. They are doing nothing that's unacceptable. It's truly a reflection on me, on something I need to do to work on my own nervous system. Whether that's I need to do more during the day to get my nervous system regulated while they're at school or camp, whether it's that I need to change my environment. So something I've been doing lately is popping in my Loop earplugs. I'll link them in the show notes. They're amazing. I can still hear everything. It's just like it turns down the volume on my whole house. Still here, but it's just not at a 10 out of 10. So, think about what a gift it is that our kids are able to teach us more about ourselves than anyone else and leverage that to not only your benefit, but your whole family's benefit as well. I think that it's easy to blame the circumstances or someone else rather than to take a hard look at ourselves and be honest about what could change internally in order to improve our outward experiences. But man, the payoff is huge. The payoff is everything. So do what you can to embrace it. I think that you're going to find you feel so much better about who you are as a person when you do the work. It's totally worthwhile. And then my final takeaway on my decade of life as a mom has been to learn that everything is temporary, for better or worse. I was thinking the other day about how I love, and the kids love it too. We love walking to and from school as much as possible. I don't know why. I know some families in our neighborhood that are just like, I can't imagine. Like, that sounds so unenjoyable. We love it. We absolutely love it. And I was thinking the other day when I was out for a walk by myself, I was thinking about, oh, it's going to be so nice that we're coming up on the school year starting again, and we'll really be able to enjoy those walks together so soon. And then I realized, yeah, except for this is my last year getting to do this with my kids. This is it. Theo's off to middle school next year. So the good things are temporary. So really do what you can to make the most of them. And also remember that the things that are hard are also temporary. I heard someone recently on Instagram describe her children's trickier, more challenging periods of development as their eras. And I loved that. I think it just humanized what our kids are going through, right? Like, we all have had our different eras of our lives, and some great, some really hard for both us and the people we're living with. So, whether you're going through a season of things being really good, be sure to really soak it up as much as you can because it's going to be temporary. And then when things do change and they become harder again, remember that that's going to be temporary as well. So I hope that these takeaways have meant something to you. I thank you for letting me share a little bit of what I've learned along the way. I hope it's been meaningful to you and makes a real difference in your experience as well. And if you want to hear more episodes like these, be sure to let me know as a review or send me a DM on Instagram. I love hearing from you and knowing which episodes are resonating the most with you. So don't hesitate to share your thoughts and let me know what you'd like to hear more of. Bye for now. You've just finished another episode of the Mom Life Handbook podcast. Remember to check out the episode description for all the important links and highlights from today's show. While you're there, tap the subscribe button so that new episodes are always at your fingertips. Before you go, I'd really appreciate hearing your thoughts about the show. It takes as little as 30 seconds to leave a review, and your honest thoughts help me create a better show and help other moms discover it too. And if this episode really helped you out, go ahead and hit the share button to text it to a friend or share it on social media. You never know who in your life might benefit from a little extra support. Don't forget, there are lots of ways to stay connected beyond the podcast. Head over to momlifehandbook.com for additional resources or to learn about how to work with me. And be sure to follow along on Instagram at momlifehandbook. Send me a DM to say hey or to share your thoughts on today's episode. Connecting with you personally is what I really love most. And just in case you need to hear it today, you're doing an incredible job. I know it doesn't always feel like it, but you're here, learning how to be better and do better. Keep working to bring more intention and ease into your life, and know that I'm right here cheering you on. You're creating a beautiful journey for you and your family. I am so proud of you.